Hello, hello, hello. This is Chris Ferdinandi from GoMakeThings.com and LeanWebClub.com. And today we're going to be continuing our series building a web app completely from vanilla web components start to finish. So down in the show notes below, I will make sure, or in the description rather, this is not a podcast, I will make sure I link to the first three parts in this series, as well as the source code for everything that we're going to build today. As a quick overview, we have a custom web component, which is called Pick at Random. And last week, we added the ability to customize a whole bunch of stuff about how it works, including changing the labels and things like that, as well as a unique local storage ID. And if you jump over, you can see we actually have multiple instances of it. We've got one that lets you select a random person, another one that lets you pick a random item. This one is kind of like the stock original version. So like we could do fruit, for example, right? Apples, bananas, get the little messages that show that things have happened. And you can pick a random item from the list or remove all the items. Here we're going to do names. Let's say Chad, Becca, Carl, Juanita, right? You can see we've customized what shows up as messaging. You can remove individual people. And this is all tied to local storage. So if I reload the page, apple, pears, bananas, spelled that wrong, but that's okay. If I reload the page, everything gets loaded into its correct respective places. If you want to learn how we got up to this point, check out the first three parts in the series. If not, feel free to just dive right in. Real quick, if you want to learn how to do more of this kind of stuff on your own, I'd really encourage you to check out the Lean Web Club. This is my all-in-one, everything I know about web development platform. So you'll get access to dozens of courses, guides, and projects, as well as some talks on a variety of topics. I also have this really handy reference section. So after you've learned something, if you just want to go look it up quickly, you can. And something that we're going to be using really heavily today, the toolkit, where we've got a bunch of boilerplates that you can copy, paste, and go from, including some pre-built web components if you want to reverse engineer some and see how things work. And then every other week, I also have an office hours live video session where you can ask questions, talk to other people. And in between then, you get access to my community where you can chat with people and share tips, tricks, and things that you're learning. Also, if you enjoy this video, please like it, subscribe, leave a comment. If you have questions, ask them below. I try to answer every one. And they also inform future videos. So super, super helpful. With that out of the way, I'm going to stop talking. We're going to dig in. What we are doing today is we are going to extend this web component further by adding custom events. So one of the things that you'll often find with any JavaScript library is that when you build it, people are going to want to use it in ways that you didn't originally anticipate or plan. And a custom event is a vanilla JavaScript API that lets you emit an event that people can listen for with the add event listener method and then respond to. And we can use it to extend our web component and let people do things beyond what we maybe planned for. So let's go ahead and drop in some events for various things. So I think for this particular one, I am going to add, I want to add a bunch of events, but we'll see where we get to. But I think some of the easiest and obvious ones, right, are emitting an event when the component is ready to run. So when everything's been all set up, and maybe one when it gets removed entirely from the DOM. And then I also will probably add events for when an item is added to the list, when it's removed from the list, or when the list is cleared. And then I think another really good thing to do is to add some events right before those things happen. And we'll talk about why in just a minute, but we're going to add a bunch of events. So let's take a quick look at the API. So I'm going to actually jump over to my stuff. I have this one bookmarked. Because we're going to be doing this over and over again, I think it's really helpful to have a helper function to emit it for us. And I happen to have one in the Lean Web Club that I can just copy, paste, and repurpose. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to jump over to my script, and let's put this after the constructor, and maybe even after handle event. We've got our event handlers here. You know what? I'll probably drop this. I guess I'll drop this down at the bottom. That seems to be where we're putting the helper functions. So I've got my custom event. I don't need function because this is inside a class. So just calling it emit will be good enough. And it's got a few different variables that the helper function normally accepts. So the first is the type, or like the event name, any details that you want emitted with the event, and then the element to attach to. And I'll explain how this works, and then we'll make some changes. So first, if there's no type, normally we would just bail because that's the most important part. The way custom events work is you create a new custom event with the type of event, and then an object with some variables. So whether or not it bubbles, whether or not it can be canceled, and any details that you want accessible on the event object itself. And then you dispatch it on whatever element you want that event emitted directly on. The thing with returning it is when it successfully emits, it will return true. If it doesn't, it will return false. We can actually use that to do some additional stuff. So if someone were to, for example, run event prevent default, this would actually return false if cancelable was set to true. By default, it's not. It's actually false, as is bubbles. That's why we're defining those as true. And so we could do this to do things like stop certain things in our script from happening, as we'll see in a minute. But let's start off by making some changes. So first, there's always going to be an event type. So I'm gonna pull that right out. Also, I don't care about the element because we are always going to emit it on our web component, like custom element. So instead of element, we're going to emit it on this, always. And then for type, I'm going to jump up here and I'm going to custom events. So I've got a whole section here on custom events. This is how they work, the helper function, and then naming conventions. And so there's a few different ways you can name these, like with a dash. My favorite is what I call the prefix kebab, where you've got the name of the library, a colon, and then the name of the event. It makes it a little bit more clear what's what. So for our purposes, we are going to say, what are we calling our library? Like, what's the official name on this? Pick at random. Okay, so we will go pick at random colon and then the type. And so when we listen for events, we will always be listening for a pick at random type of event. So let's take a look at, I'm going to keep this up right here. I'm going to open a new tab. And so we're going to do a couple of things, right? So inside our constructor, we're doing a whole bunch of setting up. And we're loading all our items. And now at this point, we're ready. So emit ready event. So we can do this emit ready. There's really not anything at this point that I think I need to emit. Let's see, do I have any? I'm just thinking about details here. Like it's been a little while since I've looked at this. Oh yeah, get items. So I have a way to look at what items we have available. Yeah, so I'm going to do this. Actually, I'm going to, for details, I'm going to pass in like the list. I'm trying to think, is there ever going to be anything that I don't? Yeah, sometimes it'll be the picked person, right? So we'll say items, this, get items. So we'll do that. And let's test this. So I am going to, before we define our script, we are going to say document add event listener, pick at random ready, and then inside our function on the event, we will console log event target and event detail. All right, and yeah, let's jump over to the browser and see what we get. Okay, so you can see we've got our element here, and then this one has 2 items in it, Chad and Juanita, and then we've got this element, and it has 3 items, apple, pears, and bananas. Cool. Let's make this a little bit smaller. There we go. Just want to make it a little bit easier to see. Cool. Yeah, so that's a great start, right? Now let's take a look at some of our other events, right? So I am let's see. So handle submit events, create a list item, show status, save items. So which one? What are we doing here? Okay, so let's take a look at on submit as an example. This is where things start to get interesting. Now we can start to give developers more control. So like when this happens, when it's ready, you might want to fire off some other scripts, right? Like there may be some stuff you want to do when this script loads. Now you have a way to do that. But let's imagine you want to do some special stuff after an event is added to the DOM, right? Because if we look at the HTML here, we've got a form for adding items to the list, and when it's submitted, we add them. So one of the things we can do, right, is emit custom event. We'll say this emit, and this is we'll say item. I'm going to say add item. Yeah, add item. And we're going to do the same thing as last time, actually. So here, I'm sorry, I've got like 8 tabs open because I'm not really keen on manually typing a bunch of stuff over and over again. So we'll take this, right? So emit, we'll say item added event, right? And yeah, so we'll rename this. So it's going to be add item. And we'll have all of the items, but we'll also have, let's say, new item as a property. And it's going to be this field value. In fact, we should probably save it. So let's say let val equal, and then we'll use that, because if we clear it out, we can't, we're clearing it here. So then this would just show as nothing. So we'll do this, val, and yeah, cool. So let's see that in action, right? So we're going to go pick at random, add item, and we'll reload, right? And then let's say Barry. Cool. So this is the element. The new item is Barry, and the updated list includes Chad, Juanita, and Barry. Same thing here. If we were to add, let's say Kiwi, right? It's this particular element. The new item is Kiwi, and now our array has 4 items in it. So, okay, cool. All well and good. But where this starts to get really powerful is in emitting beforehand. So let's make another little change here, right? So we're going to get item value, and then emit before add item event. We'll move this up. So this is going to return true if the event successfully fired. If it didn't, it will return false. So we want to check for the opposite of that. If this is false, we want to cancel our event. So I'm going to wrap the whole thing in parentheses. I'm going to put the bang operator before it. And if this returns false, cancel will have a value of true. And then we can say, if the event was canceled, bail early. So if cancel, return. Now, if we were to jump over here and add a new person, right? So let's say Gloria, everything works just fine. But what if, let's imagine, for example, we only want, and I'm gonna comment these out just to quiet down our console a little bit. Let's imagine before add item. Oh yeah, I need to change this. This should be before add item. There we go. It's important to get the name right. So let's imagine we want to listen for before add item. And if the number of items in the list is already greater than, let's say 5 or 4, we don't want to add any more items. Like that's the max list size. So we could say if event detail, what are we calling this? Items length is greater than 4, event prevent default. And this will stop the list from being updated. So, and then just to make sure we know, can't add any more items, sorry. So we would probably do something different than this, like in the UI, if this was the case. But just to kind of show you here. So let's go ahead and clear out the list, right? I'm better with fruit, so let's do that. We're gonna go apples, oranges, bananas, kiwi, watermelon. I didn't reload the page. So dumb. Apples, oranges, bananas, kiwi, watermelon. Interesting. Before add item. So let's console log cancel. Fruit. Oh, there we go. I was one item short. So at the time that this runs, at the time that it runs, this was just stupid user error. At the time that it runs, like the item's length before adding that last item is less than 4. So after 5, we cap it. Okay, cool. I was right. I can't do math this morning, apparently, right? So if we were to try to add, it's not really a fruit. Well, I guess technically it is, but tomato, right? So you see this won't take. So we'd probably want to surface some sort of like UI element indicating that to users. But you can see now we've added a little bit more control here. So we can repeat this pattern in other parts in our script. So for example, we've got a handful of on-click events. We might want to do something similar before clearing the list or after clearing the list. Like for example, automatically these things save to local storage. We might want to send them to an API. So we could use our add item event to do that. We might also want to do that whenever the list is cleared, whenever an individual item is removed, and so on. So we will add a bunch of different events to let us do that. So let's start with this. I'm just gonna copy this format and I'm gonna use it over and over again. So we're doing our little check here. Um, double check that the user actually wants to do it. And then before we take action, right? So before clear list, before emit, I'm just going to start calling these before and after events for ease. So we will get all of the items in the list. And if it was canceled, we won't do it. We'll remove all the items, and then we will emit our custom event. And for this one, we don't need to check if it was canceled. This will just be clear list. And we actually won't have any items for this one because the list is cleared. So there's really no details to share there. We're just empty. And we don't need this either. And then we'll follow a similar pattern, right? So let's take this. We are going to on remove, and then get the list item. Say remove it, but before we remove it, we want to do a double check, right? So we'll do this, right? So we're going to emit before remove item. We're going to get all items, and then we're also going to get the individual item itself. So we will say, what do we want to do? We want to get the text here. So we'll get the list item text content. There was a whole thing, right, where I had to remove something. So I think it's in get items, right? Where is that? I seem to recall this from last time, where we want to replace, this right here. So we're going to do this. So basically, if the button has HTML, like we don't want the button to show up in the text, so we're going to do this. So we'll get the item, the individual specific item itself, and then all of the items, and we'll emit those, and then we'll do the same thing for our after event. So down here, emit custom event, and we'll just say remove item. In fact, we should actually probably just save this to a variable so that we're not repeating it, right? So let item text equals, and we can use that in both places because once the item is gone, well, I guess technically we'll still have a reference to it, so we can still get that text, but rather than doing the work twice, we'll just save it to a variable. And so we're just going to repeat this pattern, right? So again, on the pick button, we're getting all of our items here. Before we do anything, we will emit before pick item. We've already got our items, which is nice. One less thing to do. So we'll just, we will, you know what? Actually, I have an idea here for these. We're going to do this. Instead of canceling before the shuffle, we will cancel after the shuffle. So we'll say picked item, and we will reveal what that item was. And that way the user could make a decision, like if the picked item was a certain thing, we don't want to show that for whatever reason. And then we'll do the same thing here, right? So we'll emit custom event. Let's fix the indenting here. So emit pick item, picked item, all items. And those are all of the major events. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else really here that I'd like to do a custom event on. Just to kind of show you the whole, we'll say kit and caboodle here, right? So let's scroll up. and jump over. So we've got this going on. I'm gonna do this. So we've got pick at random, and then we've got before. So let's console log, and then we're just gonna have the before, we'll have the names rather. So event detail, and then I honestly at this point I forget what all the different items that we are the different values, right? So we've got before add item, event detail, new item, and we'll see the whole thing, right? So boom, event details, new, right? Cool. And then scrolling through a little bit, we've got clear list. Okay, so before clear list, event details, items, before clear list, and then for clear list, we won't have any event detail items to log, so we'll just leave that one as plain. And then we've got remove and pick, right? So remove item. So before remove item, and then what do we want to log here? For this one, I think we'll log the actual, like the item, whatever this new item is, event details item. I don't care as much about the whole thing here. Remove item, and finally, we've got our pick. And what did we call that? Before pick item and pick item. All right, sweet. So before pick item. This will be the last one. Pick item, pick item. All right, let's go ahead and actually see this in action. So we'll remove everything. Before clear list, this was the list. After, it's empty. We're going to say kiwi, before add, and then add grapes, bananas, and let's go one more, watermelon. So we've got some events. Let's clear those out. Just, console's a little noisy. We're going to remove, actually, let's pick an item first. Before pick and after pick. Oh, that one is undefined. So we have an error there. We'll have to go fix that one. Let's see why. Oh, because it's picked item. That's the problem. So picked item. It should probably just be, for consistency, it should probably just be item for all of these. So we'll go through and change that in a minute, but that'll get us there, right? Grapes, watermelon. And if we were to remove one, removed bananas, removed kiwi. Yeah, so you can see now we've added all this flexibility. You could do all sorts of cool things. So you could stop the list from getting too big. You could save certain items. You could prevent duplicates from being selected, right? So if an item was already selected, don't let it get selected again. The important part about this approach is it lets you extend the functionality beyond what you, the developer, think someone might want. So if someone else wants to hook into this, they can modify and extend it without ever having to come in and touch the base code itself. So hopefully that was useful for you. I'm going to include the source code for this entire thing down in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to leave a comment, like it, share it with friends, subscribe. It lets YouTube know that you like these videos and you want more of them. And if you have something you'd like me to make a video about, please let me know, and I will do so again in the future. I think this is actually the end of this series, so I will see you next time. Cheers.